Hello, and welcome to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver show. We're happy you're here. On the show, we're certain that you'll relate to the caregiver stories and find comfort with your honorary sisters. Before we start, I want to remind you to go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, and sign up for our newsletter. We'd love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, and YouTube. We're sharing tons of useful information that you can use as well as chat with our followers. Now, let's jump right into today's confession. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Natalie.
Hey, Miss Emmy.
Hey, Natalie.
You know what's better than having one confession on an episode?
I don't know. What could it be, Emily?
It's when you have two. Oh my gosh, we are so fortunate today that we not only have one of the brothers from the Marchetti family, we have both.
It's true.
Oh,
and these young men, we must say,
they are very
you guys right now.
Young men.
You need
You're
to
going to
get
want to
on
watch YouTube.
You know.
They're like, we'll have like, Jay, we're going to have the best, like the most views on this episode on YouTube. People be like, I want to see these guys. Not only are they smart, they happen to be quite the caregiver.
Yeah, they do.
Thought I was going somewhere different. So tell us about the guys. Tell us about Chris and Anthony.
Okay. So we are called the Elliott sisters. I'm thinking maybe they're called the Marchetti brothers.
I bet they are.
So these young men were born and raised in New Jersey. They both still live in New Jersey as well. Mm-hmm. But like the sisters, there are definitely some differences. So we're going to start with Chris because why? He's the oldest. So at 30, like I said, Chris lives in New Jersey and he works in Manhattan for Goldman Sachs. Now, his life is filled with, get ready, guys, he's really busy. Movies, outdoor adventures, concerts, playing the guitar, history, and he binges on museums, which I love that, Chris. We're like, I'm coming to see you.
I feel like the dating game music in the background.
I know.
Like
don't say that. I got to get through them.
Yeah,
so,
wait,
anyway.
what's the subject here?
I know, right? It's caregiving.
Your mom tricked us. She's tricked you. But Chris has 4 immutable truths that he says will remain forever true in his life. And the greatest of things is family and friends, which I love. He figured that out at an early age. So I appreciate that, Chris. So then, of course, there's Anthony.
The baby.
I feel you, Anthony. Beauty. It's always the baby.
I know. That was good. Love it.
You'd be shocked how many people think Anthony's the older one.
The truth is out. Oh, they always think Emily's the oldest, so I'm okay with that. That's a good thing, Anthony. So at 26, Anthony lives in Hoboken, and as he's in New Jersey as well, and he works in software sales at Salesforce in New York City. For fun, you'll find him at concerts too, probably with his brother. In any weather, the beach in the summer and the ski slopes in the winter. And the same pastime he shares with his brother, spending time with family and friends. Now let's talk about caregiving. Throughout their lives, they've been caregivers, starting with when Anthony was in the 8th grade. That's when Dolores, their grandmother, moved in. And Chris describes Dolores as always selfless with her time, even as she's had Parkinson's and it's progressed. But she was never comfortable getting help. As her needs have increased and these brothers moved out and into their careers and their own lives as adults, one thing has remained constant. The family works together to support each other in caregiving, which is amazing. We have seen it in action. We are so happy to have you guys here.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not going to talk anymore. We're not allowed to talk.
Happy to be here.
Oh, these guys are so wonderful.
So the Marchetti brothers, fantastic. You guys were active. You have we think you have fantastic parents. We'll go
we're totally biased. Like we want them to adopt us as well, but Doreen's going to say, I'm too young for you to adopt.
That's true. So you guys, Anthony, you're in the 8th grade. Chris, you're in high school and your grandmother has lived at, you guys, I'll just kind of add, your grandmother has been in Pittsburgh. And you guys have gone back and forth. How long have you known that she's had Parkinson's? How long have you guys been experiencing that?
I mean, she had a really slow degradation. So I think she had begun having problems basically as early as our memory, but completely functional for many of those years. So we were traveling to Pittsburgh 3-4 times a year. In addition to our grandmother, our great grandparents were there, our uncle and aunt were there. So lots of roots in Pittsburgh. And grandma lived alone, did all the cooking, all the managing, also was a full-time caregiver to her parents. But really slowly, the disease kind of kicked in. And it was only, to your point, when I was in high school and Anthony was in middle school, that we finally kind of forced her hand and made her come live with us in New Jersey. Reluctantly, I will add.
Yeah, she didn't want to come, did she?
No, not
absolutely not.
I don't think it was you guys that she didn't want to be with. Well, maybe. I mean, maybe your boys. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you.
It was definitely her daughter.
Yeah. The will is strong in Doreen, and she gets it honest.
They're virtually the same person, which is the thing about Shafanos, which is our mom's last name. Shafanos will never admit that they're all the same, but they're all the same.
Ooh,
yes.
Out.
So I guess for me, I'm like, okay, Chris, you're in high school. Anthony, you're in 8th grade. You guys are active in sports and everything. And then grandma's coming to live with you. So
wait, did Doreen and Mike, your mom and dad, did they sit down and y'all have like a family conversation? Like, we're moving grandma in and we're probably going to take her hostage to do it. Anything like that?
I think it was kind of like in the plan though as well. Like we had added onto our house, like added a room and like a whole downstairs element. So I think it was kind of in the works a little bit because as Chris mentioned, her health was kind of degrading over time. And then, something happened in Pittsburgh, an accident kind of just like sparked it. And it was just like, hey guys, like grandma's gonna be moving in with us, some changes, but yeah, we were pretty open to it. It was never like a problem or anything, but yeah.
The other interesting aspect as caregivers is when she came, she was more or less self-sufficient. So walking, moving, cooking, etc., with a kitchenette downstairs. And so basically able to do her own thing, and really driving was the only thing removed from her lifestyle at that point. And then, from there to now, basically a degradation of bodily functions and capabilities and everything. So just very different dynamic all those years ago than now.
Did either of you guys live in the bougie basement? Because when we came to visit your family, Jason and I stayed in said bougie basement. It's awesome. It's like a full mother-in-law suite downstairs. And I'm not saying we played pool table on the pool table, but there's a full game room. It's awesome downstairs, but it's a split level house too. That's the other important. It's a split level. There's a lot of stairs. And we'll get to that in the
I am sure we will talk about our mother and our grandmother's stubbornness and resistance to change. We are the same. Anthony's bedroom was fully decorated in Steelers paraphernalia from ceiling to floor, so there's no way he was giving up that
up until
room.
This year, by the way. So
that's the guest room.
Yeah,
that's the guest room I slept in.
There's no way he was leaving that room, and I had all my kind of trinkets and setup and habits and drawers I liked, so also no way I was moving.
Oh, so I love that. I do too.
We are an anti-change family.
I like it.
And it's such an oxymoron considering the biggest change is your grandmother coming in. So
big time.
Then it's like, okay. So, Jay, go ahead.
So, I know our relationship with our grandmother, she was cool. We went on vacation with her and we did all this. So how is that? Because your guys, you're cool. I think you're cool, Chris, Anthony, I think you guys are cool. So how does that work? Because your grandmother's, there, but she also, does she become part of your life? Like, is she going places with you, or how's that working?
I would say one thing is grandma has always been very introverted. She really wasn't much for like the social scene when she was living on her own, and she was very independent. So like having her there was nice because I think connected a little bit more. But when it comes to like, would she come out with us and would she go to like all of our games, all of our sports? She really didn't. And it's because I think like she's always kind of been almost afraid of the social spotlight, which is too bad because she is, a really wonderful person to talk to when you get to know her. But she was very independent. So that aspect of our life didn't really change much, even with her in the home.
That's interesting. But I know she cooks.
Yeah, she does. That's for sure. She's a heck of a baker too. I think that's where mom. Yeah, she definitely surpassed everyone in the family in baking. That's where she was the queen.
That is a skill set. We did have pies when we were there. And so, not that we liked food or anything, but Doreen doesn't. You don't leave home from the Marchetti home, or hungry. So Okay. So as you guys are getting older, I saw a couple of photos with your friends, like you guys they have their setup is very much kind of the way that Doreen talked about us is your home kind of like gravitated, all the kids or your friends gravitated into your home. And how was that? Because I saw the one photo with you guys and it looked like a bunch of your friends are surrounding, Dolores. Like, is she having, it's almost like a little bit of forced socialization there for her. So you bring the party to her.
Yeah. So we're a very social family, and our house was definitely one of the epicenters for childhood gatherings. So our house was constantly filled with people, and the basement den area was, kind of a primary hangout. And that, as you know, from being there, is connected to grandma's residency. So she was kind of always present down there. So all of our friends, both of our friends, groups of friends, got to know grandma very, very well, because she was just very present in their lives too, just as a result of being nearby. Luckily, she must be hard of hearing, because we were up pretty darn late down there, never heard a peep from her. But yeah, so as our friends would be over constant, they would just have all this engagement and time with her, and particularly as her mental state and capabilities, degraded, we were kind of taking a more active role in everything, moving her around and everything. All of our friends kind of got in on that as well and know her quite well. So our friends have been really tremendous with her.
Mm.
I think about a photo because Emily has 2 boys. Natalie and I have dogs. Emily has all the kids, but she has 2 sons. And I think about when the boys would walk to our mom's house from like middle school, and they took their friends. There's a photo, Em, I think of like.
There is. It was Mom's birthday, I believe. And all the boys would come over with her. I also have a daughter. And the oldest one is 22, and then the twins are 20. So all their friends would come over, and grandmama was always baking something. There was always food to be had. Yeah. So, and they just got used to it. Let's go over to Owen and Max's grandmama's house. And they had a blast.
Well, I feel like that also probably benefited your friends, though, because it seems like not just us knowing Parkinson's the way we do. A lot of people are afraid of it. And it just, for your house, it was like, it's just kind of commonplace, and we just deal with it, because that's how I feel like you guys are. You just deal with it. Do you feel like that's what it's done to your lives? Like, you seem like you just, it's not a problem. You just approach things differently.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Anthony.
Go for it. I would say, yeah, no, absolutely. I think our family just always kind of been that way. Like, as challenges arise, we'll just deal with them and kind of take those hurdles head on. And agree, like Parkinson's was something that growing up, like we didn't know anything about either, even though grandma had it, but she was so far away in Pittsburgh, right? So we didn't know like what it was doing maybe on a day-to-day side of things. And as it developed, like it is a scary element, but it's something like we've been asked before, like knowing that it is genetic is something that we're afraid of. And my response has always been, hey, if it comes, it comes, and I'll deal with it then. And just knowing that that's kind of like our mentality as a family there.
Shout out to our parents, who were just pretty strong-willed and durable people on my mom's side. like the Pittsburgh blood is pretty blue collar and exceedingly stubborn. So they just kind of roll. They don't even roll with the punches. They kind of punch back at the punches is sort of how they do it out there. Yeah. And then our dad's, as you know, a much more tolerant and tame soul, but also quite stoic. I mean, guy's had cancer 3 times and would never even mention it. So just I think the 2 sides of family approach it from different ways, but have always sort of just been game to take it as it comes.
So that is interesting that now you've kind of tossed that out there. Oh, by the way, we're taking care of Dolores. She's in the house, but you are caregivers in another sense, because you also have your dad who, like you said, has had these bouts with cancer, and you have your mom caring for him. Your mom, your whole family works. It's not like somebody stays at home and cares for someone 24/7. But tell us about that. What's the time frame there, Chris, Anthony, and how is that impacting your lives? Like, that's important.
Yeah. So he was diagnosed first time around the same time as grandma coming, a little earlier. I was in high school, Anthony was in middle school. But frankly, credit to them, it really wasn't an impact on our lives in any really material way, just because I think Dad's preference was to tough it out. So from a caregiving perspective, really all it meant for us was we had to pick up all the heavy stuff. And other than that, Dad kind of did it himself, and with Mom's support, obviously. But he's introverted in a kind of similar way to Grandma in some sense, that like, you don't air problems, or air grievances and that kind of thing. You kind of keep it in, which is not necessarily, the right thing to do. And I think a psychologist would probably suggest that's probably not a good thing. But what it does do is it makes people comfortable around you and makes you not the center, and lets kind of people live their lives. And, our even with Grandma there and Dad's health issues and Mom working full time, like, they created an environment where we were able to really kind of fully enjoy ourselves and experience our youth and do all those things without really a whole lot of burden. And the repayment is to be a tight family unit. And obviously when they needed stuff, we were there, and, very present for taking care of Grandma, and, just kind of a very cohesive family unit. And that was probably the best thing we could do for Dad specifically. I mean, they always say it's, your kind of family network, and, feeling of worth and involvement is like one of the better medicines for tough health situations. So, I think we definitely stick together and are very involved in each other's lives, and probably do more family activity as a percentage of time than most American families, for sure.
Hey ladies, I need to interrupt for just a second to share about the Sisterhood membership. It's basically a sale every day, and the best part, it's free. Here's the details. We're partnering with our friends at Benefit Hub and other care partners to save you money. With over 200,000 participating companies across the U.S. and abroad, you'll find discounts at your favorite local stores, huge savings on vacations, amazing deals on home, auto, and supplemental insurances, and everything in between. Go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up, and then definitely tell your friends about it. They can join too. Trust me, there's a discount for everyone. And don't forget, it's free. Okay, back to confessing.
Ladies, I found a really interesting study about caregivers when I started my journey with mom caregiving, that the men that are caregivers are actually, I hate to say this, ladies, but better caregivers than women are. They're more empathetic, helpful. And honestly, I saw that in my boys too. They were extremely helpful with my mom and just anticipating her needs, just not saying very much, but just kind of like helping throughout the day without her prompting or anything like that. Was either one of you, Chris or Anthony, do you feel like the other one, maybe that's a little bit more their avenue of expertise, or it just came naturally, or was it both of you all?
I think it came pretty naturally to us. Like obviously, like Mom and Dad are both excellent. Like they were excellent parents, right? Growing up, like there was a lot of love in the house. So I just think because of that, it kind of came pretty naturally to us. And to that point, I think like when dealing with Grandma, there might also be an extra element of like, it's our grandmother versus Mom's mom. Like, I think there might be some added frustration with Mom when you're dealing with maybe your own mother. So for us, like we're just a little bit, we're more patient with, with Grandma than Mom is.
Yes.
And I think Dad is as well. And I think that helps out a lot with the caregiving aspect, where Mom gets frustrated sometimes. And it is extremely frustrating. So I understand, but at the same time, when you talk about like men versus women, it's interesting that the study says that, because in our house, I think that might be the case with maybe the empathy and the patience variables. Not to say that Mom isn't an excellent caregiver, because she is, but yeah, those two variables in particular, I think that is interesting.
Yeah. And there's like an interesting cross role kind of feature there as well, because we're probably the more patient ones and more able to make Grandma comfortable and that kind of aspect to it. But where we don't participate, and where kind of Mom and then also Dad really drive the bus is, working with the senior home and with Medicare and all that stuff. And Mom's kind of the butt kicker in that sense. Yeah. And like, she'll kick their butt and she'll kick Grandma's butt. She'll tell Grandma, all the stuff she should be doing, like, force her to get out of the house, forcing her to exercise and stuff. And these are good things. You need to kind of be forced and prodded, especially when, your inclination might be to, lean back, sit down, do nothing. So I think we all kind of fulfill slightly different roles in how we energize and engage Grandma and kind of all the other aspects to healthcare that are less fun, like paperwork and all that rubbish.
So you said something about roles, which is interesting because Emily has, when we talk about our roles, like I'm the big finance, I do all that kind of organization. Those are kind of, we all have areas of expertise. Natalie's the insurance fighter. Like she will go
I am
to
your
war with
mother.
a doctor. And she's your mother. And then Emily is really just, and we always say it's because she has kids, but she has that caregiving role. So we all know our strengths. With the two of you guys, do you feel like one had more of a strength that, do you guys, did you kind of segment duties? Did you be like, okay, if you'll do this, I can do this better? Did you find yourselves putting yourselves in roles?
As a family, for sure. Between Anthony and me, I'd say probably less so. Because we did a lot of the same stuff. And from a physicality perspective, we were the best at getting her to walk and move around. And to your point, Natalie, that's a friggin' heavy wheelchair. So we were definitely the manual labor and kind of more of the grandchildren, relationship aspect. But as a unit, we definitely have fairly defined roles, in terms of, who engages with the senior home, who engages with paperwork and attorney and all that kind of stuff. But Anthony and I both got pretty good at the feeding, the moving, the putting to bed, getting up, bathroom, all the kind of day-to-day interaction stuff we're pretty proficient in at this point.
But I hear you almost be dismissive about it. And I'm like, did you just hear everything that you do, Chris, Anthony? Like everything you've done, you're like,
it's a lot.
Oh, it's a full-time job. It wouldn't work without all four of us. That's for sure. And then it really, it makes sense why, we have a neglect issue in this country with the elderly, because, it is hard. It is hard to have time to do everything. And there's no doubt that it takes a fairly substantial portion of each one of our time to make that work.
So you guys went to college. You chose to go to college close by. Now, mind you, I went 4 hours away because I had to be far enough away that my mother couldn't drop in on me, but close enough I wanted to get home to see my friends. And so, but you guys, was that intentional? Was it like for you guys like, oh, I love this college. I didn't think about the fact that my family it's close by, or was that a determining factor in, I'm going to choose this college because one, it fits what my needs, but it also fits my family need?
Yeah. I mean, I think probably not at at like a particularly thoughtful level, but we both applied to mostly schools close by. And I think it was less so for logistical reasons and more so because we do have very, very strong roots in the Northeast, both friends and family and, caregiving, et cetera. So I think there was an implicit sort of belief or understanding that being close by, all of the things equal, is better. And we both came home a lot during college. And I mean, we were staggered in this, like we're 4 years apart. So we were not both in college at the same time at any time. So one of us was always home. And it wasn't like a rule, like you need to be close to be able to take care of grandma. Our parents are very independent and sufficient when we're gone, which is often because we do a lot of trips and a lot of stuff with friends and have lived other places. And our parents have borne the brunt of that responsibility in a pretty incredible way. But as a family unit, I think being close by is just like inherently expected and desired.
Yeah. Yeah. So Anthony, you're there for a portion of time. You're younger, but you're by yourself. I mean,
oh, how did that go?
Yeah, I know. Because we left Emily by herself for a while too. So
I didn't feel bad though. I'm not gonna lie to you.
She will call you later to talk about
Zero
that.
guilt. Yeah.
No, it's and even then too, like where I'm at currently is a 40-minute drive to home or a 45-minute train ride. So it is like still very close, and I try to come home 2-3 times a month. So like, and to Chris's point as well, like when we were going away to college, like I love the Northeast, we love New Jersey. And I think like we've always kind of viewed, or at least for myself, like I want to raise a family in this area and like work in New York or work in the greater New York City area. So going to school made sense as well. And now that I am working in the city, I don't know how Chris does it, but commuting an hour 45 each way wasn't really in my cards. So I decided to move out. So I'm a lot closer to where I work. But as I mentioned, like it was never a problem. Like it was never like really a conversation. Like mom wanted me to move out and kind of experience that as well. Chris lived in Jersey City for a few years and did the same thing as well. And now is back home. But like I mentioned, it's great because the train is there in 40 minutes. Like I'm literally heading to the movies tonight with my family. I'm going home for that. So it's something very easy that we do all the time.
I love that you're going to the movies. I want to know what you're going to watch.
That's what I wanted to know. Are you guys going to see Barbie?
Chris,
you're going to watch Oppenheimer.
Oh, I thought he was going to see Barbie. I got to toss that out there, Chris.
I thought they were doing Barbenheimer.
We do both want to see Barbie. Full disclosure, we want to see Barbie, but
absolutely,
Oppenheimer.
You're every girl's dream at this moment. Both of you.
But make no mistake, Oppenheimer is much more important.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Dad's got the physicist genes in him, so we're looking forward to seeing that as a family. It should be a great time.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Fun.
So tell me, there's something that we saw when we were there, and you talk about going home. So I know that you guys made the tough decision at some point, and I'm not sure if it was as a family, but I think it probably was that it was time for your grandmother to go into a skilled facility, that she was probably going to need more care. But how does that work now? Is she, because you guys bring Dolores home, like we were there and she was having dinner with us and everything. Tell me how that works, but also why you feel like that's important.
Yeah, for sure. So we bring her home at least 4 times a week, I'd say, from the home. And maybe just to backstep a minute, the need for the home. So this was a pretty intense debate in our family around sending her to the home. I am very anti-senior homes. I completely understand why they exist. And I completely understand that for a lot of people, there's really no other option. Families are distant in terms of geography, are busy in terms of work. It's very hard, as we talked about earlier, to have time to caregive. So the senior home fulfills a necessary function. But I just don't like them. I don't like them at all. And I think, all these old people basically sit in these places all freaking day with no one they know. And it's just, I don't personally think it's a great way to live. So having said that, it's of course necessary. I think it's a different dynamic with grandma because she really doesn't speak. She cannot get up and move on her own. She was already an introvert, antisocial prior to. So there's really no form of engaging activity that can really be done for her in a place like that. Versus, there's plenty of healthier folks in homes who probably do establish, networks and friends in a social environment. And it's probably a much healthier experience for them. So fully cognizant, every situation's different. But really what it came down to is with Anthony and I both out of the house, done with college, full-time working, just the physicality of caring for grandma was just challenging. Dad with his health issues, mom with her full-time work as well. And it really is basic stuff. It's how do you do the bathroom? And stuff like that is something that, the home can fulfill that function. So, all of her bathing, all of her, feeding, et cetera, can be done there. But my personal opinion, I think we've probably seen it in practice as well, is that she spends too much time there. You start to see the degradation, kind of the lack of engagement, lack of, living. So my parents have prioritized getting her home a lot because she obviously has a much more comfortable and familial experience at home. And we see it when we bring her home, she definitely kind of lights up a little bit more and is more engaged and gets some fresh air. It's the other thing about those places, the windows don't open, which utterly blows my mind. But just stuff like that. So I think the happy medium we've reached is that, financially Medicare is a big part of that because these places are expensive. So, we kind of found a financial solution to have her at the home, And then for us, it's the ability to bring her home and remain engaged with her and active with her, is also important. But it's tricky. I'm sure for every family. I know the senior home stuff is a tough decision and a difficult path to navigate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he hit the nail on the head. Like, I definitely think it was like a really intense conversation and debate when we were going into this decision. Like Chris, as he already mentioned, he was definitely I think the most against putting her into the home from the family perspective. And it's just because he was still home. So I think, he can definitely help out with all those physical things. And as we already touched on, the home is really difficult, especially for her. When we go and we visit her, it's really tough to see her in that environment because what Chris already referenced, she's not moving. She's not interacting with anyone. She's not meeting any new friends. And like unfortunately, we've seen that like degradation of health, even with her being in there for, the last, what is it now, Chris, like a year and a half? Is that right? 2 years now?
Around there.
Which is really sad. And I think like that's been very difficult to live with. But at the same time, it's also like Chris already mentioned too, it became to the point where like basic daily functions we weren't able to provide with ease. Like it was very limiting to what mom, dad, or Chris and I were able to do with our own lives, which made it really difficult. With, like Chris mentioned, just basic things like she can't even eat on her own. So like, someone needs to sit there and feed her every single little bite. Right. And, going to the bathroom, anything at all. So it was the right decision, I think. And we're so lucky, and it's great that we're able to get her out of there as often as we are. Because I think it would be a very different situation if she was in there 7 days a week, all day long. I don't even know if she'd still be with us, because I think like it really is a very important piece to get her out and to have that interaction and have that mental stimulus.
I totally agree. And she is about 10 to 15 minutes from your all's home. So your mom and dad see her every day. They take turns going, which is that's the one thing that was so interesting to us, because JJ and I got to come in and see it as outsiders, given the privilege to see what it's like. And to see everything that your mom and dad do. And I mean, they're role modeling for you guys. And the influence there in itself it's very interesting to me. But, and then the act of bringing Dolores home, she absolutely changes when she comes home. She knows you guys, whether she can speak or not. Even when she was interacting with JJ and I, the look in her eyes, you can tell what engagement does for an individual. And it was actually after we left that we talked about we started paying someone to come in and see her, because we're long distance caregivers, to have someone come in besides our family 3 days a week to intentionally do that.
See our mom, because of what your family does.
Yep. And so it was such a good example to us, but to see how it benefited, because your grandmother's 92.
Yep.
And so, I'm thinking Dolores has got 100 in her without question, just because of
there's no doubt.
She's as healthy as an ox. Yeah.
She is. And she's as saucy too, because she is, we talk about nonverbal, but to the extent that she can tell you what she wants. I feel like, do you guys feel like it's kind of like twins? Emily had twins. I feel like she communicates, and you guys have got that, you got the 211, as Natalie says, on the information and that communication with her.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. It is interesting to see, the interaction with someone who's definitely kind of like not fully mentally cognizant, but is still for sure there, who can't speak. It's it's a challenging level of communication, but that's the kind of thing that only a family members who have spent a lot of time together can understand. It's another thing about the home is that there's no way they can pick up on the cues or have the instincts, and it's not their fault. It's just reality. Right. So you just like the little mannerisms and the cues are basically the way you communicate at that point.
And Natalie, you touched on it too. Like, it doesn't even matter if it's like a family or a loved one. Like, if somebody brand new, like, her day will get lit up just from like the interaction. And it just shows too, like in some of these homes, like they really aren't getting any of that interaction, which is like really unfortunate and scary. But for grandma, like when we bring out, like when my girlfriend met her for the first time, like her face lit up like she'd known Sarah forever. So it's like there's certain things, like I'm sure she did the same thing with you guys. And of course, when she sees Chris or myself or mom and dad, same interaction, which is great. It's just so important to get them out and get that stimulus going.
Well, no, I have a question, because I hear, you guys talking about the nursing homes, the facilities, and kind of apprehensions of what that could look like. You guys are young. And I think one of the big issues these days are people are not preparing for this. It's something that I was preaching to my stepkids, because they're 35 and 37. I was like, do you have long-term care insurance? Do you have this? Do you have your power of attorneys in place? How do you feel that have you taken these experiences and said, whoa, we gotta figure this out now, because you just don't know. You've got your dad, and then you've got also Dolores. How has that impacted your present and then your kind of future?
And your
thinking?
planning.
Your planning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is you're immortal when you're young, so you don't think about this stuff, and it's just flat out true. There's no doubt about it. And I consider myself an extremely long-term thinker. I'm a big saver and big student of history and all that kind of stuff. So I do tend to think in long-term far more than I would say the average person my age, and even I haven't plan that stuff out. I think it's easy for us to say, oh, it won't happen to us or whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think one of the big ironies I think most of us would say, oh yeah, we'll never be in a home. We're gonna die at our own house, right? That's what everybody says, and that it virtually doesn't happen for anyone because that's just not what realistically happens when your health goes down. Having said that, Dolores's parents did do that. Really? So we have case precedent of dying in your own home. So it's still not a realistic plan, but I was not kidding. We were not kidding when we talked about the stubbornness of this family earlier. It's a bunch of immovable objects is basically what our family is. So I'm still sticking to the die at my own home plan for now.
I'm on the drop dead plan, Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to work until I die. I mean, you're in the right industry. You're at Goldman Sachs.
Yeah,
I assume you're going to drop dead at any moment.
Yeah, exactly. But it is funny because to your point, I mean, it's, even though I'm a long-term planner, I also do think there's a certain reality to there is a certain level of premature planning. You can't really plan it yet because you do not know which cancer you're going to get, which brain disease you're going to get, this and that. It's impossible. It's flat out impossible. I think you can outline your plan, and I think both of us are social people. So when our kids ship us off to the home someday, I think we will excel socially and from an engagement perspective. But you just don't know. You just don't know what your situation's going to be. Yeah. But I think more broadly, I think one thing that will be true, because it's very much been instilled in the generations in this family, is a very tight, cohesive family unit. And I am sure that we will imbue that in our families eventually as well. So I am confident in that respect. That the caregiving culture very much exists. I mean, we only briefly touched on it earlier, but Dolores, when she was younger, she full-time took care of both of her parents, who lived to be 101 and 97.
Yeah.
They stayed in their own home. They bought the home during the Great Depression and had it well into the 2000s up to their death. And so there's a history of that cohesiveness and people not really moving too far away and all that kind of stuff. So I think culturally we'll be in a good place as we age, but the details, I mean, it's impossible. It's completely impossible to know. Yeah. Just save all your money and get ready for those senior home costs. That's basically it.
Well, the dating. So I'll put it to you this way, depending if you do make it there and you happen to be single, there's more women to men. So I think it's like going.
Yes, there is.
It's
right.
It's really.
We digressed. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
I mean, the only reason that's true is because you guys kill us off.
Oh, Jason would tell you the same thing. God bless you. God bless you, Chris. So
Team Mike would say the same thing.
Yeah. Very quietly away from Doreen. So Doreen, although if your mom heard it, she'd probably be like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, the gender life expectancy discrepancy is not biological; it's psychological.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Anthony, do you think that? Okay, so Chris has given his. Do you think, are you mentally preparing? Are you mentally as well as how are you preparing for age?
Because you're just 26. I know in my 20s, I was like, hey.
I've been like, whatever, I'm living forever.
Yeah, so not particularly. I think like Chris said, we kind of feel like we're invincible. And also I'll add this, I think I take after my mom's side of the family more genetically. So I always say to Chris, I'm expecting to live to 120. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. Right. I've always just kind of felt that way. So I'm not really looking forward. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not having that, mindset, but I will say what I've thought about more so throughout this has been taking care of our parents.
I was going to ask.
That's where I was going next.
So yeah, I think that's something that has come into my mind quite a bit. And we'll see what challenges arise with that situation. But I mean, just based on, and Chris touched on it too, like family has always been very important for generations now when it comes to the Marchettis and Schiafanos. So like, I'm fully prepared to take on the responsibility of taking care of our parents the same way they've done with grandma and the same way grandma did with their parents. And I think that's something that, Chris would probably say the same as well.
Have you guys had a discussion about that in the family? Like, we over know the dinner table?
What your dad
like, what are your parents?
Dad always says, like, put me in a home and just like, don't like live your life is what Dad always says.
And that's what he said to us.
Yeah. Cause it is quite a burden, right? There's no doubt about it. But I mean, we would never do that being who we are and, what we've come from. And, my mom, I think is quite literally the opposite. Like, they both sacrificed so much for us. And, like, I think my mom is always kind of saying like, hey, yeah, like when I get to that point, like I expect you guys to do the same. And that's fine because we'll be there.
Oh, I love that. So here's the interesting, so Anthony, I know that you've been dating, Sarah for a little bit. And so have you had this conversation with her? Because I know you guys are a touch more serious. And so than just, cash. And so have you had this? I mean, she clearly sees what your family does, right? Is she all like, yeah, is your mom moving in with us? Because I can see. So here's the thing. We're also Team Mike. And I could see her being like, Team Mike's fine. But Team Doreen, like
pump the brakes on that one. No,
she all like, I'll take your dad. I mean, because I know for us, we would have been like, dude, Dad can come with us, live with us anytime. But I was like, Emily, turn around, don't drown. Mom's coming to live with you.
It's and I think this speaks a lot about how great Sarah is. So first and foremost, she is a nurse. So she's in the healthcare industry, and I think that is like a big part here and a big variable. Just like having that. She was a NICU nurse start. Now she's doing like a dermatology clinic, and we'll see where kind of that career leads her. But like, there's a certain mentality that comes with that profession, right? Which Absolutely. I think it just makes her more open to these kinds of conversations and knowing that that's kind of possible. Like when there was a weekend where we had to kind of be home and watch after the dog and grandma when the rest of the family was out. So Sarah came with me, it was just the two of us. And one day I was working, Sarah went to the senior home on her own and just spent the day with my grandma, right? Like, so there's certain things that she does, which I think says a lot. And I think it's, an expectation that, that could be a possibility. And with her family as well, like I'm fully open to that might be a possibility with hers too. Yeah. So I think it goes both ways.
Yeah. I like that. And Chris, I'm assuming that's a part of the dating profile of 400 things that they have to qualify for.
Exactly. Well, and then I think, I know the focus of the podcast is really on personal experience.
Yeah.
But this question especially, I think, is a much broader socioeconomic question, because the way I think about it is I don't think people are going to have a choice whether their parents live with them. I think it's going to be reality because housing is a larger portion of income cost than any other time in American history. We're living longer, and so you need more saved for retirement. The cost of caregiving for your children, so we can take the opposite when they're, we haven't talked about babies and stuff yet, but third-party expense to take care of them is immeasurably expensive and often out of scope for people. So I think there's just a certain reality that your parents are going to be a more involved part of your life because they're going to be caring for their grandchildren. I don't think Americans are going to be able to have 3 different generations of houses in the family the way pricing and the way time is spent nowadays. Yeah. So I think it's less of a choice, frankly. And then for us, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that I will be living in proximity to them, both because we will have to do some caregiving and also because we're not going to get better meatballs anywhere else.
That's it. I'll tell you right now, I'm all about the food truck because Chris told us about the food truck. Nor bocce ball.
Someday.
You gotta have enough people to have a competitive team for bocce ball. They're never played bocce ball before, and
absolutely
they have almost, it is a half the size of regulation, but it was so much fun.
It's very fun.
We are so coming back to New Jersey for that game. I'm telling you right now. So Anthony, you better get Sarah ready because it's girls against guys, and she's going to be on this side.
Yeah, she played for the first time this year, and she's pretty damn good. So yeah, it's a strong person to have on your team. It's a good one in your corner there.
Yeah, I like it. Yes. We'll bring Emily, but we just don't know about her bocce ball skill sets yet. So we'll have to work on it.
We're gonna have to. I always love to learn something new. Yeah.
Mom will cut you loose pretty quickly if you don't perform. So
yeah, I mean, again,
okay.
Yeah, you'll like Doreen a lot, Emily.
Oh.
So, I'll say this: you guys are not what I expected, and exactly what I expected, knowing your parents. And I think I know we're not to the end yet, but I really hope that other folks your age, and then I really hope our older folks who listen in, our more mature folks who listen, feel hopeful from statements. Because if we had folks like you in your generation thinking about this and being mindful about this, and you know what I mean, like spreading the word, like you are the next generation, you are leading the charge of change, and that's exactly what we need. I mean, JJ is going to turn 50 on Saturday, and I'm 47, Emily's 45, but we need people right behind us who are advocating just as hard to say we've got to have different things. And I think you guys are very much the voice. And so that's what we love about your generation, and why we really wanted to have folks your age from your generation on to say, hey, this is important to us too. And yeah, I don't have any questions, Anthony. I don't think your kids are going to put you in a nursing home, because honestly, it's lead by example, and they'll follow your all's example. So you know what though? The best part, it's time for sister questions. It is the time you guys have been nervously been waiting for.
I don't think they'll be that bad. I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. Watch Emily. Emily's like, I'll be good.
She's the mom.
I'll be good. I've got boys of my own.
God bless. You guys would like them too. I'm like, oh, you guys would like them a lot. So, Emmy, do you want to start the questions?
I will. And I'll ask it to either one of you can answer it. Can you tell us of like a very just hilariously fun time that you had with Dolores, that you both just still crack up to this day? Like, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah. So it's not one moment, but this is so not mom style at all. But that side of the family are prolific farters.
Yes.
and like that sounds like a silly thing to say, but like, I mean, this is true, and in just a crazy way. It's unbelievable. Their proficiency for farting is remarkable. Dolores there's two identical stories. Dolores' dad was in his 90s, Frank. We had a family photo with all of us, and he had no hearing by the end, no, spatial awareness, whatever, and we're all in a group about to take this photo, and he just farted. And I don't even think he knew that he did. And he couldn't hear, couldn't see, and we all started cracking up. And this photo exists as a photo of Mom, all three of her brothers, all of the kids across, Dolores and her parents. So it's a large photo, and everybody is, ear to ear cracking up. Except for Frank, because he didn't even know he did it. And then and I'm sure Dolores was a little bit mortified, and now she pretty much does the exact same thing.
Anthony, do you have a favorite?
Love it.
That is like a heck of a story there, and it's like that probably is like top notch from that. Yeah, no, nothing really too outside of that. That's probably like the funniest one that I can think of as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I stole the thunder on that, but that is the known family story.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, Jay, what do you have?
I'm going to ask a very important question. Who do you feel like is the favorite?
Oh,
I'll just say it's Chris. I think this actually, I'll go back to my previous or our other grandmother as well, Grandma Emily, and tell a funny story there. I think it kind of captures this one as well. But so in our family, I'm kind of known as the other boy between all the cousins. And so my grandma, when one of our neighbors came over one time, it was me, Chris, and our two cousins on that side. And the neighbor came in, and my grandma Emily went, "Oh, Paul and Andrew and Chris and the other boy. And that was kind of, all right, cool. Thanks, Grandma. Like, sounds good. But it's kind of like with Grandma Dolores, and she loves both of us, right? I had no doubt about it. But I think there's something Chris does that really makes her face light up. I know, Natalie, before you kind of referenced that as well. It's something special. Like, her face will light up with all kinds of engagement. But I think with Chris, it's just different than anybody else in the family and really anyone else in the world. Yeah, so it's Chris. I still
wait. Even with your mom and dad.
With your mom and dad, we're going lower.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, with like everybody. Yeah, like sorry, with mom and dad. You're
so
saying?
With mom and dad, who is the favorite? Because I'm going to tell you, I am not the favorite of our family. My mom clearly has a favorite.
Yeah, I think it's evolved.
Have you guys? Is it split?
I was the favorite growing up because Anthony was the much more significant troublemaker, and we didn't have to screen my report cards. But I think it's evolved because Sarah is great, and Anthony's doing all kinds of really cool stuff now. So I think the tables have turned a little bit. But growing up, it was probably me.
But it's okay. Yeah, we laugh about that. Who's the favorite? It was
just based on
that's just our funny joke.
They didn't love me more. They just didn't have to worry about me as much. That's true. The favorite's not who you love more; it's who you worry about less.
I kept them up at night a little bit more, so I think that was probably why.
That's the oldest child thing, Chris. My mom, they didn't have to worry about me. I was perfect, basically. I think
that's right.
Close that out.
But these younger siblings also owe us a lot more thank you than they realize, because we took the brunt of all that attention, focus, and anxiety, and let them go live their lives once the parents had less energy to care.
That's right.
So we walked so that you could fly.
I'm going to disagree on this.
Oh, thank you.
Of course, I'm going to disagree on this because, like in our household, Chris, Chris is extremely intelligent. Like, he never had less than like an A+ on a single report card throughout like college. And for me, like, I don't know, school just wasn't as much of my strong suit. So I would come home and mom and dad would rip me a new one. So it was always like, you know what, like, Chris, certain things, that might be the case. I might have gotten away with a little bit more on the social aspect, but when it came to school, I was wearing the belt, man. It was like so much tougher.
I'm going to tell you what the key is, Anthony.
Signatures or anything. Yeah, it's tougher.
The key to that is just have the grandkids first. I'm telling you.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Whoever is the parent of the grandkids. Okay, so I've got 60 seconds.
Okay, go.
The last two, and both of you get to answer. What is your favorite guilty pleasure?
Like brownies. Like our brownies are just like, we'll just demolish. It's always food in this family. So
you know what? And that's the one thing your dad didn't make for us. We're coming back to New Jersey. We heard about the brownies. Okay. So I can verify it's not a BS answer. I heard about the brownies. That's the only thing, for the love of God, we did not eat. Chris, what is yours?
For me, on the food side, it's definitely the Oreos. And then lots of guilty pleasure movies.
Oh yes.
Love a good sappy movie, but you won't hear it from me.
I love it.
Didn't hear a thing.
So guys, I am running out, but I'm going to tell you right now, this has been so much fun. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on and sharing your story. It's just, you guys are awesome. And you have, you know what? You're a product of your parents and your grandparents and their grandparents. So this is what really family looks like. And so a family of care and love, and I love it. So guys, thanks so much for listening in. We appreciate you. And until the next time when we confess again, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Thank you so much for listening in. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confessions Show. Don't forget, visit our website to sign up for our newsletter and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Twitter. You'll also find the video recording of all of our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. We are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have any medical questions, we recommend that you talk to a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this show are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This show is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC. Thank you for listening to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver show.